Let him have that scrap of land. Vivian Carter sneered, her voice slicing through the tense courtroom air just as the judge's gavel fell. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut on a life once golden. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters leaned forward. Ethan Ward stood still, not defeated, not angry, just hollow. The man who once owned skyscrapers, fleets, and headlines now stood with nothing but a single key in his palm. His empire gone. His marriage dissolved. His dignity stripped under the white glare of the world's cameras. Vivian smirked, certain she had finished him. In her eyes he was a relic, a man erased from the map of success. But as Ethan turned the key over in his fingers, something passed behind his calm gaze, something she could never see. Because that small piece of land she mocked was about to reveal the one secret that would rewrite everything. Before we go any further, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and it helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Vivian Carter's laugh wasn't loud. It was the kind that leaks between teeth, quiet, cruel, controlled. She didn't even look at Ethan when she did it. She looked at the reporters the way a model glances at her reflection before the flash. Ethan kept his posture rigid. He adjusted his tie, thumb running along the seam to stop his hand from trembling. The judge's monotone voice carried the weight of finality. Company assets to the petitioner. Penthouse to the petitioner. Accounts, vehicles, and art transferred. Respondent retains ownership of one property, a single dwelling at the outer boundary of Brookville. A murmur spread through the courtroom like static. A journalist whispered, "Wow," under his breath. Another raised her phone for a photo. Somewhere behind, a voice said, "He should have seen this coming." Vivian turned slightly toward her attorney, her chin lifted just enough for the cameras to catch. "Let him rot in that shack," she murmured. Her lawyer smiled without warmth. The bailiff coughed. The gavel struck. Final. Ethan exhaled once, nodded to no one, and stepped out beneath the courthouse lights. Outside the city roared. Cameras flashed like lightning. "Mr. Ward. Any comment? Did she take everything? What's next for you, Ethan?" He said nothing. Silence, his oldest ally, wrapped itself around him again. He reached the steps, his black shoes tapping rhythmically against marble, and for a moment, just a moment, he allowed himself to feel the sting. Then he tucked it away like a letter not yet ready to be read. On the sidewalk, two reporters gossiped as he passed. "She took his executive team too, right?" "Yeah. And no prenup. Man built a rocket and forgot the parachute." Ethan kept walking. The city smelled of heat, coffee, and something faintly metallic, like endings. Inside his car, he loosened his tie and stared at the key in his hand. One key. One house. One chance left to start over. The drive to Brookville stretched under a bruised sky. Dusk deepened. Crickets began their nightly chorus. The air grew colder, cleaner. When he finally pulled up, the house sat small and crooked on its patch of tired earth, the kind of place no one noticed anymore. The mailbox leaned like it had opinions. The porch sagged like a sigh. Still it was his. He cut the engine and listened to the car's cooling tick fade into the dark. For the first time in months he felt the absence of noise. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and thyme. Dust motes floated through the dim yellow light when he flipped the switch. The floorboards creaked a tired greeting under his steps. He opened the kitchen window and let the night air in, cold, sharp, honest. Then he set the key down on the counter, exhaled slowly and smiled, a faint, private smile. The kind that hinted at patience, not peace. That night, Vivian posted from her new penthouse. Camera with flash, starting fresh. The caption gleamed beneath filtered city lights. Someone commented, "What about Ethan?" Vivian replied with a single emoji, a cracked house. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed a faint line under the kitchen tiles, a fracture too deliberate to be random. He crouched, brushed it once, then let it go. Later he'd remember it. For now, he filed it away in the back of his mind like an unsolved equation. The old house creaked. Outside, a dog barked. The night fell into stillness. By morning, light spilled through half-broken blinds. Ethan woke to the whistle of a radiator and the taste of old paint. He sat up, rubbed his temples, and listened. Every house has its own heartbeat. This one pulsed slow, patient. Coffee bubbled. He leaned on the counter, reading the deed again. Ward Estate, 1912. Something about that date tugged at memory. Tucked inside the papers he found an older note. Bullmont Legacy Office, Harbor Street. The handwriting sparked a faint recognition. His godfather. The funeral. The handshake. The whisper, "Be patient. And be quiet." At noon he drove to the harbor. A small brick office sat behind frosted glass, the words Bullman Legacy Trust etched faintly across the door. "I'm here about a trust file," Ethan told the receptionist. She nodded, typing. "Name and key phrase?" He gave both. Moments later, a tall man in a navy suit guided him to a quiet room lined with steel cabinets. The air smelled of paper and old metal. A folder slid across the table. "Mr. Ward, your godfather's instructions were clear," the manager said softly. Ethan opened it. The first page carried a title. Bullman Legacy Trust, Asset Protection, established 8 years ago. Below it were line after line of accounts, investments, and transfer notes, all legally insulated from personal or marital claims. Numbers swam across the page, ending in a total that made his breath catch. 9 figures. Quietly compounding. Untouched. He exhaled, shut the folder, and read the final note written in his godfather's sharp hand. "Silence builds the strongest rooms." Ethan smiled. Not the smile of triumph, but of understanding. That evening back at the house, he cleared a corner of the living room. A folding table. A laptop. A notepad. He registered a new email. A new phone line. A shell company with a simple name. Ward Capital Holdings. And then he began. He started small, broken suppliers, unnoticed logistics firms, small contracts left for dead by larger corporations. He read every covenant, every fine print until his eyes burned. He learned to trade hours for clarity and silence for progress. At night, the radiator hissed like a tired snake. He'd glance at the faint crack under the kitchen tiles and think, not yet. Across the city, Vivian filled magazines, champagne smiles, red carpets, designer launches. Every picture looked perfect. Every interview sounded hollow. She said the word empire too easily, as if saying it made it real. Ethan didn't watch the sound. He didn't need her voice. Her eyes said enough. Too much blinking, too much breath. Pressure was a language she never learned to hide. By winter, his small house had become command central. 3 monitors. Stacks of papers. Cold coffee. Silent ambition. He acquired small routes that fed into larger chains, moved cash through quiet channels, and built systems under names no one traced. His hair grew longer. His shirts faded. And his patience sharpened. No one noticed the quiet man driving into the industrial district. No one recognized the signature beneath shell agreements that slowly began stitching a network back together. The city thought Ethan Ward was gone. In truth, he was rebuilding beneath their feet. By early spring, the rumors began. A mysterious fund was buying out failed firms. No one knew who it was. No one knew where it came from. Ward Capital Holdings. Every deal was clean. Every move was silent. And with every acquisition, Ethan reclaimed another piece of what had been stolen, not by taking back the same empire, but by building one stronger, quieter, smarter. The kind that doesn't need applause. At her penthouse, Vivian's world began to crack. Payroll missed. Vendors left. Loans matured faster than she could fake optimism. She blamed everyone, the banks, the accountants, the economy. But she never looked in the mirror. Her empire began to crumble in the same silence Ethan once lived in. A barista whispered to a customer, "You hear about Vivian Carter? She's selling her jewelry. Guess karma wears heels," someone joked. Ethan heard it. He didn't smile. He just took another sip of black coffee. That night, her call came through, trembling voice, a hint of desperation. "They turned on me," she said. "Vivian," Ethan replied quietly, "you turned on yourself." Then he hung up. He turned off the lights and let the rain speak for him. The next morning he drafted a press release. Ward Capital Holdings, dedicated to rebuilding what others waste. He read it twice, saved it, and waited. Because revenge wasn't loud. It was patient. And Ethan Ward had mastered patience. Rain had washed the city clean by morning, but the headlines were dirty with curiosity. Who is behind Ward Capital Holdings? No photo. No trace. Just performance charts that climbed like rumor. Ethan read each article in silence. He kept the blinds half closed, light striping across the desk where his coffee cooled. Every word about the mystery investor was a reminder that invisibility was working. He no longer needed to defend his name. He was rewriting it under a new one. Vivian, meanwhile, had stopped posting. Her glamorous world leaked through cracks. Cancelled events, empty offices, messages marked urgent that nobody answered. The same journalists who once adored her now wrote about financial mismanagement and executive negligence. By April, one of her brands filed for bankruptcy. Reporters swarmed her lobby, but she slipped out the back door wearing sunglasses that hid more than tears. Ethan saw the clip online. He watched without sound, fingertips pressed together. He wasn't gloating. He was measuring the moment, the quiet shift when power changes hands without ceremony. Ward Capital expanded like shadow. It absorbed suppliers, freight companies, recycling plants, each piece small, unthreatening, invisible until assembled. His network stretched beneath the market like hidden roots waiting for spring. At night, the old Brookville house hummed with activity. Printer lights blinked. Papers spread across the table like a battlefield map. Ethan worked until the walls themselves seemed to breathe strategy. The crack under the kitchen tile caught his eye again. He pried it open this time, careful, curious. Beneath, a small tin box rested in the dust. Inside, a faded photograph of his godfather standing before the same house decades earlier, and a single note. Build where they can't see you. He smiled, that same restrained, dangerous smile. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. Summer rose hot and bright. Vivian's empire fell colder by the week. One by one, investors withdrew. Banks reclaimed. Designers left. The last magazine feature called her the woman who mistook glamour for gravity. When her phone buzzed, it was rarely good news. And one night it was Ethan. "You did this," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "You did. I just stopped you from doing it again." She said nothing after that. The line went dead and stayed that way. Weeks later, the invitation arrived in Ethan's inbox. Public auction, assets of Carter Holdings. He went. Quiet suit. Rolled sleeves. No entourage. The room smelled of dust and burnt coffee. Bidders whispered numbers like sins. When the screen displayed the final lot, Carter Holdings intellectual property, remaining shares, name rights, he lifted his card once. No one countered. No one dared. The gavel struck, and with it the circle closed. Outside, wind brushed the parking lot. He paused, breathing it in, the scent of closure, sharp and clean. That night, online news erupted. Anonymous buyer acquires Carter Holdings. Speculation filled the comment sections. A foreign firm, a rival, a ghost. Only one journalist zoomed in on the signature, E. Ward, managing director. She published a single line, "The man they buried built the coffin." By morning, Ethan's inbox overflowed with meeting requests, interview offers, partnership pitches. He declined most. Accepted one. When he entered the press hall, cameras erupted. The same faces that had once watched him fall now waited for his words. He stepped to the microphone, adjusted it once, and said, "Ward Capital Holdings was built on silence, patience, and purpose. Sometimes you lose everything so the noise can fall away. What remains, that's the foundation. No flourish. No smile. Just truth." He walked off stage before applause began. Across town, Vivian watched from a narrow apartment window. The reflection of the television blurred against her face. She pressed her palm to the glass as if she could hold the image there. Ethan's calm, his voice steady, the crowd leaning in. Her lips parted, but no words came. Outside her building, a truck rolled by with a banner. Ward Capital, rebuilding the future. She turned away from the window and sank into silence, realizing the empire she'd mocked had returned under her own name's ashes. At Brookville, the porch light glowed. Ethan set the old courthouse key on the railing, the metal worn smooth by months of turning. He looked out over the quiet fields, the house standing solid now, windows straight, roof repaired, paint fresh. He had rebuilt himself the same way, board by board, truth by truth. And the night carried only calm. The reward silence gives to those who wait long enough to listen. Evening melted into gold. The headlines had already named him, the ghost who rebuilt the market. But Ethan didn't care for titles. He sat on the porch of the Brookville house, sleeves rolled, listening to crickets trace rhythm through the dusk. The world finally moved at his pace, steady, deliberate, unhurried. Inside, his phone vibrated again. Messages from bankers, investors, journalists, each one wanting a piece of what they once dismissed. He muted them all. For the first time in years, silence felt earned. He stood, poured water into a glass, and looked around the small kitchen that had become the birthplace of an empire. The same place where he once counted losses now breathed purpose. The faint crack under the tiles remained, sealed but visible, a scar that proved survival instead of ruin. He smiled. "Leave one reminder," he murmured. The following week, he drove to the city for the first board meeting of Ward Capital Holdings. The conference room was glass-walled and sunlit, high above the noise he'd once drowned in. The new executives, quiet professionals who valued work over headlines, rose as he entered. "Gentlemen," Ethan said softly, We build quietly, we build cleanly, and we never forget what noise costs. They nodded. No applause. Just understanding. On the agenda were projects no one else wanted. Abandoned factories, laid-off workers, towns left behind by profit. He signed approvals one by one. For every company Vivian had gutted for luxury, he restored another for livelihood. He no longer chased glory, he invested in repair. That night he drove back through the long stretch of highway. The moon kept him company. The radio played low static. Halfway home, he pulled over by a quiet ridge overlooking the valley lights. He stepped out, wind brushing against his shirt, and thought about the journey. The courtroom glare. The laughter. The fall. The house with its broken floor and whispering history. Every piece had shaped the calm inside him now. He took out his phone, opened Vivian's old message thread, and scrolled through the years of noise, arguments, apologies, promises. At the bottom, her final call, "You did this." He typed a single reply and never sent it. "No, we both built what we deserved." Then he deleted the thread and watched the screen fade to black. By autumn, Ward Capital had become a name synonymous with quiet strength. Magazines ran features calling it the invisible revolution. Investors studied its patience. Economists called it the Brookville model. Ethan never appeared on magazine covers. He refused interviews unless they focused on rebuilding communities. To most of the world he remained a rumor with a signature. To himself he was simply done proving. Vivian's story ended differently. A year later she appeared in a small interview. No makeup, no stage lights, just honesty. "The hardest thing," she said, "was realizing that everything I lost wasn't stolen. I traded it for applause." Ethan watched that clip once. He didn't smile, but neither did he turn it off. He understood. Loss had been their shared teacher. He had just listened longer. The Brookville house grew into something almost sacred. He restored the porch, planted trees, built a small study lined with maps and notes. Every blueprint on the wall was a quiet promise. To rebuild, to employ, to repay the world in silence. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, he could almost hear his godfather's voice. "Silence builds the strongest rooms." And he would answer under his breath, "It did." One evening, as the sky turned copper, he walked outside with a cup of coffee. The air smelled of rain and cedar. Across the road, children rode their bikes through puddles, laughing, the sound bright and careless. He envied nothing, desired nothing. On the porch railing still lay the courthouse key, weather-worn, untaken by rust. He picked it up one last time, feeling the cool metal against his skin. It was no longer a symbol of loss. It was proof that beginnings often arrive disguised as endings. He placed it in a small wooden box beside the photograph of his godfather and whispered, "Thank you for the map." Night deepened. Lights flickered on inside the house, soft and steady. Ethan sat by the window, notebook open, sketching plans for a new foundation. A fund for small inventors, dreamers, and builders without capital. He titled the folder "The Silent Grant." It wasn't revenge anymore. It was inheritance, the kind that travels through values, not vaults. Outside, the fields shimmered silver under moonlight. The world was quiet again, but not empty. When he finally stood to lock the door, he looked around one last time. The repaired floorboards. The warm lights. The sound of peace breathing through wood and glass. He whispered to the quiet house. "She took everything that glittered. I took back everything that mattered." The latch clicked shut. And for the first time Ethan Ward slept without dreams, because he was living one.